Welcome to my podcast story, the show where podcasters share the real journey behind their voices, from their first mic check to their biggest milestones. Every episode reveals the lessons, challenges, and breakthrough that shape a podcast star's journey. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I can't wait for you to hear today's story. Tell us your name and what you do.
Willie Thornton, for my podcast, and my DJ name for my karaoke business, I would go by Wild Willie. My podcast is called Soul Impact, How Music Saved Us, and I interview various artists about how music has helped them overcome their struggles and just the real everyday garbage they go through.
Yeah, well, when did you start this podcast?
June 11th of this year.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. What was the inspiration that led to you starting the podcast?
Actually my business. Well, it started before then, but I had a lot of child abuse growing up, and music was always that safe haven for me that taught me how to deal with stuff. So I knew at an early age how powerful music really was. And then about 5 years ago, I started my own DJ karaoke business, doing sound for festivals, and I got to see a lot of it firsthand. The smile that it puts on people's faces and all that. So I wanted to share that with the world.
Okay. When you started the podcast, what was June? That's about 4 or 5 months ago. Uh, what were some of the earliest challenges you faced with starting and setting up the podcast?
Believing in myself. I self-doubt a lot sometimes. So sometimes I got in my own way more than because through Podmatch and different things, I'm able to get guests. I don't struggle with that. I would say just I'm a single parent, so I have that struggle as well. So it's just a lot of what I do is one-on-one, and when I do my podcast, it's just gives me a time to basically unplug from everything I'm doing.
Wow. You mentioned that the initial struggle was believing in yourself, and I'm curious, how have you overcome that struggle?
Honestly, it's been a lot of people that watch my videos. The feedback I get from them has been a really, really good tool. I mean, because the positive feedback encourages you when you think, because podcasting ain't cheap. There's
Yeah.
a lot of money and a lot of time that goes into it. So hearing them stories that, hey, watched this episode and this story really touched me. So conversations like that has helped me.
From the feedback you've been getting so far, what are some of the common patterns of impacts your podcast have had on your listeners? When I say common patterns, what I'm referring to is what are the common themes you notice your listeners saying that, oh, your podcast does this for me, your podcast does this for me?
I would say that probably the biggest thing is the way people relate to every situation that I've had on my podcast. I've had people on there that talk about using music to overcome addictions. I've had people on there that talk about losing a loved one. And we talk and we go deep into them topics. My podcast goes anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour and a half.
15 minutes on and a half. You mentioned earlier that you spend money on the podcast. I'm curious. Can you take us the behind the scenes of the podcast? What does it take for a podcast to move from an idea to eventually become a published episode? What are the apps, the tools you use, and how much you spend on them?
Well, I use a lot of things. I'm part of a podcast network called The Scene Projects. And I pay for AI. That I'm horrible with wording and all that. And then I have it's called a Podcaster AI, and I can input the video in and it'll make all my short reels for me. And basically, I don't edit anything. My videos are all raw, uncut. So it's just, you know, then there's paying for the streaming service that you use. I use StreamYard. Because I also am part of another podcast and I go live from StreamYard straight to YouTube. Functionalities of everything, and I'm at the point now where I've started looking for sponsors because I'm in 4 months I've jumped up from like 1,500 views to 21,000 views.
Wow,
So,
congratulations.
well, thank you. So basically, I mean, my content speaks for itself, and because no story's the same. And to me, yeah, there's no dollars coming in for the podcast yet. But if I help one person, to me, the podcast is worth it. In
Oh,
fact, there's a lady out of South Dakota. Her name's Charlotte Roop. She's an amazing woman. She has a non for profit called Operation Combating Veteran Suicide. And through my podcast, I'm teaming up with her next year, and I'm going to bring two festivals, benefit festivals, here to Missouri to help raise money for the veterans.
wow, that's really great.
But, for me, I'm religious. Not everybody is, but I am. So my faith also plays a role in what I do because I don't push it on anybody. But I believe I'm doing exactly what God wants me to be doing. So I stand firm on that.
Yeah.
And it's showing my daughter, like, I'm also in school. I'm also going back to college.
Wow,
So
that's great. You you mentioned that your podcast went from 1 to 500 views to 21,000 views in 4 months. I'm curious, what would you say is the uh, reason for that? Like, what contributed to that jump from 1.5 to 21,000?
honestly, I would say what me joining a podcast network and consistency. Like, I put an episode out once a week. I have a Facebook page. I have all the socials everybody else is probably on, and I push it. I'll go to TikTok and I'll talk about my podcast while I'm in somebody else's live. How much effort I put into it, I would honestly say that's probably the reason for the biggest jump because I do a lot with the podcast and I put in a lot of effort. And obviously, if you put whatever you put into something, that's what you're going to get out.
Yeah,
So if you put, and this is just my opinion, if you put $2 of time into a podcast, you're going to get a $2 podcast. And no one's going to want to be part of that podcast because you don't do anything to grab anybody's attention.
well,
Whether it's, and I'm not knocking any podcasters because every podcast is different. So I don't want you to think I'm better than everybody. I'm not saying that.
yeah, I get where
But
it's coming from. Yeah,
it's the heart I put into it. Like the same with my business, my DJ business. I put my heart and soul into that. Long hours. Um, I have insomnia and I can't sleep sometimes. So I get on TikTok and I'll be going through TikTok and I'll be like, oh, well, here's this person. Let me reach out to them, see if they're interested. So I'm always networking. I mean, that is probably so important and people don't realize it, how important it is to network. It wasn't until here recently that I started being guest on other people's podcasts because I was like, I've got to focus on mine, but you can't network with other people if you're just going to stay in your little niche.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's been 4 months. At what point in time of the timeline of this podcast did you feel like, oh, I am a podcaster now. I'm building something big
Honestly, it
now.
happened. Honestly, it happened really quick with me because,
Okay.
like, from being in a festival setting, the DJs, I went to a lot of these people that I've become really good friends with from doing the festivals, and I was like, "Hey, starting a podcast called Soul Impact, How Music Saved Us. I really want you on my show." Well, so I interviewed my core group of people first, and then it went from that to them sharing it and then their friends wanting on it. So it's networking. I mean, so it happened for me really fast. Like there's times, well, tomorrow I'm doing 4 interviews and then I'm interviewing for 2 other shows. Like I'm doing 4 interviews of my own, and then I'm going to be a guest on 2 other people's interview podcasts. So I'm always doing something with my podcast. I mean,
Quick break. Before we continue, I'd love to invite you to join the My Podcast Story newsletter. Each week, I share highlights from our guest stories, behind the scenes podcasting tips, and resources to help you grow your own show. You can sign up at mypodcaststory.com/join. That is mypodcaststory.com/join. Now, let's get back to the episode. How does the podcast connect to your business, or is it separate?
actually, the two work hand in hand really well because
Okay.
obviously I'm a DJ and a sound guy. So I see a lot of people in the crowd, like they'll come in and you can see they look like they got the weight of the world on their shoulders. And as a DJ, it's my job to change the mood. Like you got to read the room and you got to adapt, because just because some people want these songs played may not be what the crowd wants to hear. You got to adapt to everything going on. So you see them people coming in that looks like they got a weight of the world on their shoulder, and you play one of them upbeat, get up off your feet, dance songs. Like around here, it's the Cha Cha Slide and the Cupid Shuffle. Those are go-tos. And when you play those two, you literally have 2 kinds of people. You have the people that are up dancing and smiling, or you have the people that are smiling and laughing at the people dancing.
Okay.
Either way, you got people smiling. So it ultimately, the DJing is the platform I use to start the podcast.
Okay.
Like, I don't think my podcast would be where it is today if I hadn't been a DJ first.
Oh. Does the podcast make money?
At the moment, no.
Okay. And, do you have plans?
I'm out of pocket a lot. I'm out of pocket a lot. But like I said earlier, if I help one person, to me, it's worth it. Eventually, I would love for it to be monetized. But right now, I'm just taking it one day at a time.
Yeah, of course. So far, you've been playing, you've been doing the podcast. Have you had instances where total strangers, like not your friends, they see you outside, or they reach out to you to be a DJ for their event, and they attribute your podcast in the conversation that, oh yeah, I listen to your podcast. That's how I heard about you. I saw you talked about this on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I've really not had that opportunity yet where someone saw my podcast and wanted me to DJ. Because like I said, I've been a DJ for 5 years. So I'm well known in this area for being a DJ and being community related. And because that's so important as people in the entertainment industry, it is so important to pour back into our communities. And I don't just mean the community we live in. I mean the community we are involved in. If you're a podcaster, a musician, an artist, whoever you are, if you're in the line of entertainment, that's a community. And the community needs to get back to banding together and overcoming them struggles that people face.
Yeah. You mentioned joining a podcast network. What are some of the benefits you got from joining the network?
I would say my benefits I got from the podcast network is I happened to join a podcast network of one of my best friends. So I was fortunate enough he's my best friend, but he's my mentor too. So very fortunate to be able to learn from someone that's been doing it longer than me. Now, granted, he lets me make my own mistakes, part of the growing process.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. So
there's 10 different shows on the network, and I think there's 5 different hosts, And, I have mine, we have Soul Impact, and plus I've actually teamed up with the guy that runs the network, and we actually have another podcast called Love Noise where we bring artists on and we review their music. So, I
Oh,
mean, it's all about promoting and getting connections. I would say a real connection is what my podcast is about.
oh, I love that. Looking into the future, probably before when it gets to 1 year. So, what are some projects, experiments, and things you excited to work on, related to the podcast, of course, that you love to share with us?
Well, I would say the biggest one I'm most excited about is I'm using my podcast platform to team up with Operation Combating Veteran Suicide. And
Mm,
I'm using that platform that I have built over the build up over the last 5 months to help raise money for something that's near and dear to me. Like, I'm actually bringing two events. One's going to be in May of next year, and the other's going to be in September of next year. And I'm going to bring entertainment to people that, there's going to be veterans there. There's going to be people that wants to support the veterans. So ultimately, I'm so excited about that. I'm going to bring a community together. And to me, that's what music does, whether it's me DJing, me doing my podcast, talking to someone about how music has helped them. Ultimately, that's about bringing communities together in a real connection. I mean,
yeah,
because so many people idolize people, be like, look at this person. He's such an amazing person. But the moment he fails at something, they're like, I'm done with him. He messed up. I'm done. So I want to break that cycle because ultimately we're all human. We're all going to mess up. So you just got to roll with it and adapt as it comes.
yeah. Well, you've shared with us that you use podcasting as a means to unplug, right?
Well, absolutely. Like, to me, I get so much joy by being on a podcast with someone and them just laying it all out there and telling their story. And it's not like joy, I'm laughing at their struggling, but it's therapy for me too. I mean, and it's hearing how someone is healed, you know, that's just a testament of how much music has actually helped us. There's a study by Harvard done in 2021 that talks about um that exactly. It talks about how music releases a dopamine, which is the brain cell, it, the brain function initially, and it boosts your brain function.
Hmm,
So it is so important. Music's in everything we do. If you're anybody that's anybody, you get in the car and one of the first things you do is you turn the radio on.
yeah,
You're at the house cleaning. If you're like me, I'll turn the radio on. Music's there. Music is how I interact with my daughter sometimes. We get up, we dance around, and we act silly. So ultimately, music is a bridge for connections all around the world.
wow. You talk about music. Do you play music in your podcast, or you just talk about music?
I don't really play music. I mean, I have a couple episodes where artists do send me their information and we'll play one of their songs and they talked about how writing that song has healed them. But I save a lot of the music for the Love Noise podcast I do with Bubba Starts. And we do that on Wednesday nights over here at 9 p.m. Central Time. And we bring artists on and we just talk about their music, talk about how they got to where they are. So ultimately, no matter what I'm doing, my podcast, co hosting a podcast, DJing, interacting with my daughter, my meetings I go to for alcohol, is very involved.
Yeah. I'm curious. How do you navigate the copyrights of playing music? For the
Well,
music podcast.
a lot of it is I use up and coming artists and I have everyone sign a release form stating that I have permission to play their music on the podcast. So there's some obstacles that we had to overcome. But again, with motivation, those obstacles are gonna be overcame because you're motivated to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your podcast project with me. I'm excited to see what uh, you you the magic you create with the podcast in 6 months, 7 months, 8 months time. That will be fantastic.
I'm excited for that as well because like my very first episode was with my best friend Bubba Starts, and I go back, I watch every one of my episodes, I take notes on how I can improve, and I go up from there. Like, okay, well, I need to quit saying so much, or I need to focus on this, and I take mental notes, so then it's constantly improving. You know, I'm not the best speaker sometimes because I talk really fast and I get tripped up on my words. So I
Yeah.
have to constantly remind myself it's okay to slow down. But I mean, I'm excited to see where this is going to go. Do I think this thing is going to last? Absolutely. Because I,
Yeah.
I have so much heart and passion for it.
Um, Doing the podcast itself, it's working on you as much as you're working on the podcast. Yeah, you are taking notes.
Oh,
You're getting better speaking.
absolutely. It's about growing, whether you're an artist, whether you're a DJ, a podcaster, a painter, someone starting a new career. It's all about feedback and positive feedback that you got to be able to self critique yourself for one, uh, and be honest about it. Now, man, I knocked that one out of the park. There's nothing wrong with being good at what you do, but you're like, hey, I knocked that one out of the park, but I can improve here. I need to stay better on topic or whatever
Yeah.
your issues are. There's always room to improve from where you are. Because
Yeah.
look where you were. Like for me, 6 months ago, I probably wouldn't have bet the farm on it that the podcast was going to last because it was pretty rough my first episode.
Yeah.
And here I am. I think I'm 45 episodes in, and I just keep learning and growing. And it's ultimately that's all it's about. You can have fun
Yeah.
with it, but you got to learn and adapt as you go because the podcast industry is ever changing.
Yeah. What advice would you give to that version of Wild Willie 5 months ago that was was struggling to believe in in himself to show up and share his message? What advice would you give to him?
Find your why. Find your why on what's going to motivate you when times get hard. Because having a podcast is great, but if you don't have a firm why, like for me, my why is to help people and to be the best dad I can and provide for my daughter. That's my why. And there's times, especially with the money not coming in, that why is what keeps me going. So even when I didn't believe in myself, my why is what kept me going and got me to believe in myself. So and plan your podcast out. Research. Make sure there's not 200 podcasts just like yours
Yeah.
because people are going to get burnt out on that podcast. If you have the same podcast about purple cars and there's 200 of them, people are not going to want to watch 200 different podcasts about purple cars.
Yeah.
And if you're going to hit on someone at the same topic, find a way to make it new, fresh.
Oh, uh, thank you so much for that advice, White Willie. Where can listeners listen to your podcast and also connect with you?
I'm all over the place. I'm on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Pandora, iHeartRadio, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. Um, on YouTube, it's under the Scene Projects. On everything else, it's under Soul Impact, How Music Saved Us. It'll pull up my logo. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I'll put the link in the description so listeners can just click and go directly to the site. It's been an absolute delight chatting with you, and I'm glad that you overcome that fear their struggles of not of believing in yourself. And here we are, 4 months, 5 months after, and you haven't you're loving what you're doing. And I'm excited to see where the podcast is 1 year from now. And I know that you make so much more progress than it is you've made so far. Well done.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's been a
Yeah,
true honor to be on your show.
yeah. Thank you. I'm glad that you had a great time. That's it for today's episode of my podcast story. I hope you enjoyed listening to this journey as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. If you found value in today's episode, make sure to subscribe and leave a review. It really helps others discover the show. And don't forget to join the newsletter at mypodcaststory.com/join for more stories and podcasting insights. Until next time, keep telling your story because someone out there needs to hear it.